Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
I'm Uncle Dan.
I'm Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields.
We're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
God damn right. Well, you guys,
Hello.
Hey.
here we are at a number, and it's 174, and you take it or leave it. You know what I mean? Like,
I leave all numbers.
I don't
believe in
know
them.
if that number's significant to somebody, and I don't know if it isn't, but there it is. It's just math,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we gotta. I think we have an incredibly informative show today.
I'm very
It's kind
educational.
of a fun one. It's interesting.
It's one of the rare moments where I think all three of us didn't know about the other, like anything about the other segments.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
It was
very
fun.
very little, and I think all three of us didn't know very much about our own segments. So
Right.
we all learned a little bit about each other and about ourselves today, right?
It's the tradition.
And so I'm going to talk about how everything old is new again.
And then I'm gonna distract us from the pain outside with just a pointless woo that stinks.
Yeah,
Which sounds great. And I am going to break our no girls policy. And
the He-Man and women haters.
It's no girls. We're allowed to have one.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that is called all of atheist podcasting, essentially. So,
Right.
yeah.
So
And
sadly true.
I know that needs to be fixed. So, great show. It's a lot of fun, and we all need a little fun right now. And speaking of fun, we also have our the unofficial heretic hangout that our friend Joe is running over on the Facebook, and it's kind of a closed group, right, Dan?
I think he's got to let you in. It's not affiliated with the podcast, but we do like it there. I'm on there frequently.
Yeah.
And
If you answer his questions 3, he will let you in.
also, if you go to our Parlor page, oh wait, that was taken down, so never mind about that.
Yeah, you'll find the real us over on Parler. And then, of course, we are guys. I don't know if you know this, but we are about half of our segments are now on our YouTube page.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so our friend Vern has been doing the large work over there. So almost half of our giant library of segments, hundreds and hundreds, is over there now. So it's
And you can listen to an entire show there, or it's broken out by segment.
Yeah.
So you can just find segment by segment each different
yeah,
thing.
so it's very searchable, and it's really it's a cool way to find and share the show. You know what I mean?
In other words, you can filter out the other two uncles and have yourself some raw, uncut Uncle Doug.
Right. That's
I never thought of it that way.
that's a rough
Kind of
ride.
creeped. So anyway, do that. Do all the things, and let's have a fun rip roaring show.
Let's do it.
Hey, Uncle Doug.
Hello.
I want to get into Mormon numerology.
It probably exists, does it not?
Well, yes, I've actually heard of some stuff, but Mormons talk a lot about the Mormons use numbers sometimes in ways that nobody else uses numbers. For instance, the number 70 can be a reference to a person and not their age, just they are a 70.
And not even necessarily a group of 70 people.
Yeah, a 70 may not belong to a group of 70 people, right? Exactly.
Right. A 70 could be a group is a much is a member of a much larger group than 70 people, but they are a member of the quorum of the 70, and then there's a quorum of the 12, and then there's the blah blah blah.
And little known fact that the Mormon unit of measure is a scoop of ice cream.
It's either that or it's Jell-O molds.
Yeah. Yeah, so, well, I have just such a Mormon number for us today, fellas, and
Hooray.
it'll take a little bit of a preamble to get into it, but it is pretty fascinating. It's one of those things, the three of us grew up Mormon, and then we've done a lot of work in the post-Mormon world, and you're like, well, we probably know everything. Nope. Nope.
Oh my God, I love that I don't know everything.
I'm about to demonstrate.
I'm very excited to learn a new thing.
And that everything old is new again. So here we go. So it's been a bumpy couple of weeks here in America. And I fear it ain't over just yet, nor will it be for a while, sadly, as our deeply conservative and deeply religious countrymen who are either deeply Christian or unblinking zombie followers of a new online Christian offshoot called QAnon, and the very real Christian offshoot, the cult of Trump, have attempted and will likely continue to overthrow our democracy because they didn't win at the ballot box. We're in real trouble here in River City, guys. So I was already thinking about today's subject for a couple of weeks prior to the domestic terror attack on the U.S. Capitol and anything else that very likely has happened in the 48 hours between my recording this and your hearing it. And it is sort of an unhappy coincidence that my topic dovetails so perfectly with the seismic events of these past few days here in these United States. So on January 15th, Greg Sargent of the Washington Post published a dreadfully depressing piece called Trump's GOP has an ugly authoritarian core. I shall quote some of the stats within it. By 66% to 30%, overall Americans say Trump acted irresponsibly in his statements and actions since the election. But Republicans say Trump acted responsibly by 66 to 29%.
Jesus.
By 62 to 31%, Americans say there's no solid evidence of the claims of voter fraud that Trump cited to refuse to accept Joe Biden's victory.
But they only say that because it's true.
But Republicans say there is solid evidence of fraud by 65 to 25%.
They just can't point to it.
Yeah, just 64 losses in court now have.
But that's how deep the conspiracy goes.
Yeah.
Right?
57% of Americans say that Trump bears a great deal or good amount of responsibility for the assault on the Capitol. But 56% of Republicans say Trump bears no responsibility at all.
Oh my! What was that number?
56%.
Oh my God!
But it gets better. And another 22% says he bears just some, totaling 78% of Republicans who largely exonerate him.
Wow!
Right.
52% of Americans say Republican leaders went too far in supporting Trump's effort to overturn the election, but 51% of Republicans say GOP leaders didn't go far enough. While 27% say they got it right, a total of 78% were fully on board or wanted more. Only 16% say they went too far. So this concludes, bubbling underneath all this is the fact that there is really a serious anti-democratic movement afoot among the class of intellectuals who are trying to carve out a purportedly respectable version of Trumpist post-liberalism. As Laura Field and Damon Linker demonstrate, this movement is getting darker, more desperate, and more radical, and some strains of it appear to be contemplating a fundamental and permanent break with liberal democracy's most basic core commitments.
Well, I assume when you say getting darker, you do not refer to skin color.
Oh, absolutely. How deep all this runs among the GOP electorate and what it will mean for the future of GOP politics is hard to say, but it's hard to look at the above polling and feel optimistic. So that's fucking great.
Yeah.
So that gets us to today's subject. As Mark Twain wisely said, history doesn't often repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Yeah.
And what passed as prelude thing rhymes with our current crisis of conservative religious Americans ready to be done with democracy? Why, the Mormon Council of 50. That's what. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
That big event. I remember that from my reading.
Well, you'll never forget it after this. So, also known as the Living Constitution and the Kingdom of God and His laws and the keys and power thereof and judgment in the hands of His servants, because Joseph Smith was really good at naming things.
I tell you what, there is not an organization in history in more need of an editor than the Mormon Church.
Oh, yeah, Mormonism, absolutely. So from 1844 to possibly 1945, a theocratic or, quote, theodemocratic, I'll get to that word in a tick, secret Mormon shadow government was ready to step in and rule the United States as soon after and soon after the entire world. How about that, fellas? So, a little background. So, for any non-Mormons, this is for you. Joseph Smith was a poor kid from Mud Holler, New York, who didn't want to spend his life behind the plow. He had quite the imagination and was a storyteller, mixing up fragments of other stories like a magpie and adding his own twists and turns to entertain his family because they couldn't afford cable. He also told people he could find gold treasure underground by divining and scrying with a magic rock, and got in a spot of trouble more than once when no treasure was found. A little while later, he had the mad luck of finding a big gold book and a sword and some spectacles that don't matter anymore, and a breastplate in the ground by the edge of the family mud farm. Though he never showed them to anyone else's actual eyes, that's a whole nother story, and then used his magic treasure-finding rock to translate the golden book by putting it in his hat and yelling what it said to his dumb friend on the other side of a dirty blanket, who wrote down the most boring book plagiarized from other books in the whole history of boring plagiarism, and boom, Mormonism happened.
I'm so embarrassed.
It's so embarrassing. Yet somehow, this boring-ass book and the weird made-up-on-the-fly religion that started to form around it caught on with all sorts of mud farmers, city dwellers, and even some rich folk. And before you knew it, Joseph Smith was no longer behind the plow, but rather behind a reckless, wobbly con flying by the seat of his pantaloons to keep it all going and keep it growing. He was kind of a spiritual Bernie Madoff. Oh, and very much like Bernie Madoff, he was also scamming people out of all their money,
Right.
and soon enough their wives and daughters as well. He promised his rapidly growing flock land, so they headed out of the crowded east into wider western spaces where displacing the original owners was just peachy under the law.
Right.
First to Ohio, before being chased out of there for welching on debts. Then a longer trek to Missouri, where the Mormons pissed off the locals to such an extent they chased them out of one county into another, where they pissed off everybody so very much that a fracas called the 1838 Mormon War occurred, causing so much tumult that the governor of the state, Lilburn Boggs, signed Missouri Executive Order Number 44, ordering the Mormons out of the state upon pain of death. Smith ran like a thief in the night, but ended up being jailed and escaping from the ironically named Liberty Jail, and fled to neighboring...
Great name for a jail,
Great
really.
name. Yeah, especially one that you can get out of so easily. And fled to neighboring Illinois, where in short order he and his flock of thousands of saints set up a town called Nauvoo on one of the shittiest patches of mosquito swamp in the lower 48. Have you ever been there, Dan?
I have not.
It's horrible.
I think we should go together. We should all three of us head out there.
We should do a Hosanna shout from
Yes.
from Nauvoo. Well, you're just doing that all the time to keep the fucking mosquitoes off of you. Okay, so Smith and the Mormons were super pissed about the loss of 20 or so lives, and even more so about the huge amount of property they stole from indigenous people and then lost in their forced eviction. Smith had appealed to President Martin Van Buren in Congress for aid and protection during the Mormon War with Missouri, but none was forthcoming. So that pissed Joseph off to no end. Now, those familiar with Mormonism or regular listeners to this podcast will know that despite his humble beginnings, Joseph had a rather grandiose opinion of himself, like
Just a bit.
absurdly so.
As all cult leaders do.
Totally. He's a megalomaniac, right? So what would you guess was his next move in trying to get relief for he and his beleaguered flock, you guys? Joseph Smith for president!
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, this was long before we would learn via George W. Bush and Donald Trump that literally any idiot son of a rich man could be president. Now, in the wild, fractious, slave-owning hot mess of a stupid country the United States was in 1844, there were 23 million-ish people. There were only three types of people in the U.S. vis-a-vis the Mormons. There were actual Mormons. There were people who had never heard of them, lucky ducks. And then there was the third group of people who had heard of them but fell somewhere on the spectrum of hating to fearing them. There was plenty of untrue, salacious anti-Mormon propaganda out there, but there were also plenty of people with first-hand knowledge of what total shitbags the Mormons had been as they got evicted further and further west with all Smith's frauds, bank defaults, mob intimidation, theft, and violence.
Yeah, because he didn't just run away when the extermination order came. Like the extermination order came in part because he had been exterminating other people. Like he was a bad neighbor.
He was a terrible neighbor, and they intimidated and basically they raided other villages.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just stole other people's shit all the time. Now, you won't hear that at Temple Square, of course, because they were just martyrs for no particular reason. So the first of the three groups I mentioned above, actual Mormons, numbered 20,000 at most at the time. So carry the 5, hold the 3, and they were not unlike now a statistically insignificant portion of the total U.S. population. They were well under 1%, and a pretty despised one at that at the time. So it's either a tiny brain or huge balls or some combination of both that convinced Smith he had a shot at the White House. And to his minor credit, why wouldn't he think that? After all, he had cooked up a laughably preposterous Third Testament of Christ by pulling it out of his dirt farming ass. And now he was an incredibly rich man, worshipped by thousands, positively swimming in a level of sexual avarice unimaginable since the rule of the Khans, and the lieutenant general of an army of 4,000 men that would die without hesitation at his command.
And this is pre-Civil War.
Pre-Civil War.
So an army of 4,000 men was a significant force in that time and place.
It was a terrifying force.
Yeah.
Your head can get swole with that kind of success, I should think. But even so, it's hard to imagine whom, other than whatever percentage of voting-age men there were in 20,000 Mormons, Smith thought his voting base in the broader country was.
Right.
So soon after declaring his candidacy, and by the way, our friend Bryce Blankenagel at the Naked Mormonism podcast has an episode where he reads Joseph Smith's presidential platform. It takes the better part of an hour.
Oh my God.
And it's a doozy.
Wow.
Smith set up a super secretive group of 50 men, and men only, naturally, to be
Obviously.
his government when he inevitably assumed the presidency. How secret was it? He made them swear not even to tell their wives upon the pain of losing their cursed heads. By the way, he had also strongly considered taking the presidency by military force, using his 4,000-man Nauvoo Legion, which sounds funny until you realize that prior to the Civil War, as Doug was saying, the U.S. standing army was pretty teensy.
Right.
The Mormons would have gotten destroyed because the U.S., unlike the Mormons, could also call up hundreds of thousands of men via the draft. But it's kind of amazing to think that Smith still considered it, right?
They could have gotten far. They could have gotten into the
could have
Capitol
been messy.
building.
Listen,
they could have
I
stormed
think-
the Capitol building with
Yeah.
no problem.
I was going to say, I think our vision of a Washington that's impregnable, has been shattered.
Yeah, and the Capitol had burned 30 years prior to that.
Right.
Right, during the War of 1812. So it was could have happened again. So Smith's presidential platform, as you'll hear if you listen to Bryce read it to you, is kind of a hot mess. It hits a lot of the same lizard brain populism that Trump rode into power, then delivered absolutely none of, with some crazy libertarian twists like almost no taxes at all, abolishing half of Congress for some reason, and using the savings to buy and free all of the slaves in the slave states. So, half the congressional salaries, right? It's like a millionth of what that would have required. Emptying the prisons and sending prisoners to religious, read Mormon, re-education camps, etc. Oh, and we're just going to go ahead and annex Canada and Mexico, all of it. But this beautiful dream would be a theocracy, or in his own little neologism, theodemocracy. In theodemocracy, you guys, every man, and yes, only men, but let us do credit Smith for wanting to free and enfranchise black men in this particular plan.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was, credit where it's due. Every man is free to pursue his passions unencumbered from taxation and regulation, and also free to follow his spiritual agency and conscience, so long as that agency and conscience is allegiance to he as God's prophet on earth and the supremacy of Mormonism. And the tax money this man saves, he is then free to tithe to Smith,
Right.
with the check made out to Joseph, no middle name Smith himself. Theodemocracy, way more theo than democracy. So Joseph imagined these 50
There's always a catch, isn't there?
There's always a catch. You're free to be Mormon. So Joseph Smith imagined these 50 wise men would replace the bothersome institutions of our representative government like the House, the Senate, the Cabinet, the Judiciary, and the Vice President.
Don't need those things. Those things are useless.
Yeah, 50 men would run the entire country from a bog in Illinois. God would tell him what the law was, And he would tell them, and they would make it all happen. 51 Mormon guys would rule the United States of Canada, Mex-America, and then in short order, all the nations of the earth. They did try a couple times to draft a new U.S. Constitution they declared perfect, like a phone call with the Ukrainian president. But in the end, Smith was like, you know what? Let's not bother with writing anything down. God will just tell me what the laws are on any given day. A month after it was formed, Smith even went so far as to force a unanimous vote on the council, accepting him as their king, and so they voted.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. A little aside, this is just such a crazy detail. Bryce has this crazy story where one of the Council of the 50 Mormon guys had, on paper, devised a tiny battery-powered submarine. I didn't even know there were batteries. And Joseph decided to send it to the Russian Tsar in order to help him vanquish the kind of invincible British Navy using the submarine, and then they would be besties, and the Tsar would help Joseph rule the world, and then Joseph would overthrow him as well.
God, who does that remind me of? Like buddy with the Russians.
Good God.
I'm just trying to figure out that it's on the tip of my tongue.
I'm telling you, when I was reading about this, I'm like, holy fuck, it's like happening now. So yeah, that head just kept swollen. But to his credit, there is no evidence he ever tried to buy Greenland, sell Puerto Rico, or instruct his flock to drink bleach.
That we know about.
That we know about. It's lost to history, Dan. Another weird aside. Originally, there were two or three non-Mormons in the Council of 50 because Joseph started out wanting it to be ecumenical, but they ended up ditching it pretty soon.
Yeah. There's not a lot in it for you if you're not Mormon.
Not a lot. Like, the only thing you can possibly get out of it is to be one of the 50. That would be the only upside. So anyway, it was a weird vibe in the secret Council of 50. They would sit in a semicircle, and they would each speak their minds in order from oldest to youngest. Sucked to be the youngest guy.
Yeah, right.
And every decision had to be 100% unanimous because Smith hated the bickering in Congress so much. So how did Joseph Smith's 1844 presidential run against James Polk and Henry Clay work out? Not great. After getting arrested for destroying a printing press that was printing inconvenient truths about him, he got himself killed in June of that year in a shootout with an angry mob, likely made up of a bunch of his very disgruntled ex-followers and angry locals, not even making it to the Iowa straw poll, which, of course, did not exist yet. So after his death, the Council of 50, like a solid 1/4 or 1/3 of our contemporary countrymen, gave up entirely on the United States, democracy, and their secret attempt to turn it into a Mormon version of The Handmaid's Tale. Under their newly appointed king, the imperious Brigham Young, they turned their efforts towards getting the fuck out of the United States for good.
Yeah.
And so here we are in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, they did it. They made it out of the U.S.
As a result of those secret ruminations, our hometown in what used to be Mexico, but because Mormon history is sometimes hilarious as it is terrible, Great Salt Lake City was back in the United States after the war with Mexico within months of the Mormons' arrival here. So like many of Smith's crazy utopian ideas, the council kind of farted out of existence after a while. Its last recorded meeting was in 1884, but people think it allegedly met from time to time well into the 20th century. But it seems it died for real and maybe forever when one of its oldest surviving members, Heber J. Grant, died in 1945. So the Council of 50 is yet another of the countless proofs of radical political anti-Americanism in the Mormon DNA. And while the council seems to be as dead as Joseph, this odd readying for the temporal kingdom of Mormon Jesus kind of still resonates today.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember in episode 119, Doug talked about the secret $100 billion fund that is just one of Mormonism's hordes of treasure. When a church spokesman finally spoke to this obscene amount of money they had worked so hard to keep secret, he said two really atrocious things. First, that if it was publicly known, it would discourage members, many of whom are poor, from handing over 10% of their gross income as tithing.
Right, because that's not even a drop in the bucket.
Oh, hey, but kudos for telling the truth for once.
Yeah, I mean, it's horribly cynical and dishonest and duplicitous, but it's true. But secondly, he said that they needed this money to deal with whatever emergencies the church faced upon Jesus' imminent return. You know, when cash will be king, I guess. So, yes, Virginia, Mormonism is still positioning itself to act as the only legitimate government in the post-tribulation times. So I barely scratched the surface of the Council of 50. If you want to know more, our friend Bryce has a 3-part, madly deep dive into the subject in episodes 168 through 170 of his amazing show, Naked Mormonism. And like I was saying at the top, you know, it's one of a million things you just never find out about as an active Mormon.
Yeah.
And even though we plow the post-Mormon soil, you know, on the air once a week, I think, had you guys even heard of it before I brought it up?
I don't know that I had. I don't know.
I knew that Joseph had planned to run for president.
Yeah.
But
that was pretty well known. But this council that would basically replace all government in the United States under him, I knew nothing about. Like it's shadow government.
I mean, it's basically just a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And those are his, his administrators. Because they would all have to do anything he said.
Yeah.
So it's not like their government. They're not making decisions. Or if they are, they're subject to just be completely they're thrown away.
They're not elected representatives working, you know, as they're ideally supposed to do, working on the behalf of their constituents. They're just yes men to implement whatever he says the law is. So theodemocracy, guys.
You just said constituents. I think you meant corporate sponsors, right?
Yeah, I did mean that. And by corporate sponsors, I meant the IRA, the NRA. Yes. The Irish Republican Army controls at least one house of Congress, that's for sure.
Oh, we are confused here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. It is one of the greatest PR victories in history that the Mormon Church has managed to basically triangulate itself away from the insurrectionist, anti-democratic theocracy that it was into just, you know, a wholly owned subsidiary of the American government that it is now.
Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
So
it's
strange.
Truly amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
so there you go.
And that doesn't even mention their forays into actual communism, but that's a story for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. The Council of the 50.
All right. Whew. Well, with that, let us move on.
Smith 44. Well, Uncle Dan,
Hi-de-hoo.
you know, because everything's terrible, I don't know if you saw this, but we found out the other day that part of the reason that the outgoing administration was not cooperating at all with the incoming administration, especially about the vaccine situation, is because they had lied that there was more vaccine.
Right.
There is no stockpile. That was a lie. So that has me thinking, well, I'm probably not going to get vaccinated, as a 52-year-old person in the peak health of my life. I'm probably not going to get vaccinated until 2072 at this point.
Right.
So
it's going to be a solid decade before,
at least. So I'm looking for alternatives for wellness and health in this fraught time of inhalable death.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and you should too.
Uncle Mark and Uncle Dan, do I have the pointless solution for you?
Oh,
hooray!
Yes. And I'm with you. 2021 has offered little of the promised reprieve that 2020 delivered in, spades. Right?
Yeah, the panacea that was 2020 looks like it's not going to pan out for this year.
So rather than stick my head in the sand, today I want to talk about something that is equal parts useless and stupid to distract from the end of everything outside. That, as far as I can tell, has not racked up a significant body count, and at the end of the day is as harmless as it is ineffective. Today I want to talk about Moxibustion.
Gesundheit.
Of course you know about this. Along with acupuncture, which Uncle Dan talked about way back in episode 18, Moxibustion is one of the pillars of traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM. In fact, both practices focus on what are called meridian points in the body, where our life force, or chi, flows. In fact, both practices are often used in conjunction with each other.
I believe it's pronounced chai.
and it's delicious.
Yeah, doesn't the
Chi or
chai
Tai
flow
Chi?
through your limbic system?
Sure, why not?
I really enjoy a dirty chi.
My chi is filthy.
I know it is.
I want to do what the Rolling Stones did and go to Sweden and get all my chi transfused, so I can kick my
know what
habits.
that means.
Oh, you don't know about that? That's how that was their thing to beat heroin. They would go.
Just got a blood transfusion.
Yeah, they go get this massive, all their blood transfused, and I guess that was the trick to get off heroin. So,
Okay, I'm writing that down.
yeah,
So
Sounds
traditional
good.
Chinese medicine believed, and to our great shame, being that it's the 21st century, still believes that disease and ailment stem from an imbalance of these energies in the body, and that manipulation of the meridians, whether through acupuncture or moxibustion, can realign our qis and cure our sicknesses. Acupuncture.
I like when you pluralize it because realigning cheese sounds really funny.
if your cheddar is out of whack with your camembert,
Yeah.
I mean, imagine, like, obviously,
One hates to even think about it.
yes.
Acupuncture and moxibustion are the big brothers of yet another meridian-centric TCM practice, cupping, which we
yeah.
have yet to talk about on this show.
Yeah.
If you don't know what cupping is and how it's having a wholly undeserved resurgence right now, please don't go online and look at photos. This practice involves using heated cups to suck the skin around the meridian points out. It's gross.
Yeah.
Do you remember when what's that big swimmer guy?
Yeah, I was going to say Michael Phelps. He was super
That's
into
right.
it, and
Yeah, a bunch of athletes are into it right now.
and so they'd
it's-
show up. He'd show up shirtless to swim in the Olympics, and he'd have these massive purple circles on his
Yeah.
body.
And because he was into it, everyone else got into it.
Yeah,
This
he's an
is-
influencer.
Yeah.
He is.
This is all, of course, nonsense. However, where acupuncture uses needles to penetrate the skin and apply pressure directly to the meridians, and cupping uses suction, moxibustion focuses on heat, using small amounts of an herb called mugwort, which is placed on meridians and lit on fire.
Yeah.
Anybody who ever
Like you
spent
do.
Yeah, as you do. Anybody who ever spent any time in a spa in New Mexico or browsed the Goop website for a few minutes has no doubt heard of mugwort. This is because mugwort, or any of the flowering species of the genus Artemisia, has an outsized role in nearly every ancient medical or magical practice. The plant itself seems fairly unremarkable to the untrained eye, not least because it resembles in form and scent its less popular and unfortunately named cousin ragweed. But its various attributes have made it made it the go-to herb for all woo enthusiasts for thousands of years. Vaguely bitter.
Also, Harry Potter used it a lot.
Exactly. Vaguely bitter in flavor, it is known to repel insects, so it was widely used to cure meats and in food preparation in ancient times. It was even used in beer production before hops were discovered.
Really?
Other attributes ascribed to mugwort are boosting energy, promoting liver health, calming nerves, promoting regular menstrual cycles, digestive health, pain relief, and even curing epilepsy. This is all, of course, nonsense.
Curing epilepsy.
Curing
Right.
epilepsy.
Yeah.
There is no science to back up any of these claims. In fact, the same mild toxins that help it repel insects make it toxic to humans if consumed in large enough amounts. Its outsized role in all things woo and ancient may simply be attributed to the fact that, like the pink bungadoo in Time Bandits, a 600-foot-tall, stinky, bright red tree indigenous to everywhere, mugwort simply stunk and is readily available. Like I mentioned before, much like its cousin ragweed, it's an invasive species, so it was literally within reach everywhere in Europe and Asia and eventually America after being unleashed by Jesuit missionaries in the 16th century. You're welcome. Some ancient practitioners of moxibustion used cantharis, garlic, or semen sinapis, which is mustard seed, but today mugwort reigns supreme. Whatever the reasons, modern moxibustion does not occur without mugwort. Therefore, you will find thousands of mugwort kits, extracts, teas, and of course, essential oils all over the internet. It will surprise exactly no one that every part of the mugwort plant has found its way into essential oil pantheon.
I'm sorry, Doug. I've just got to correct your pronunciation there. Essential.
Essential.
It's essential oils.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So moxibustion gets its name from an ancient Japanese word for mugwort, mugosa. This was later changed over time to moxa and then combined with the Latin word for burning. So that's how you get moxibustion.
Okay.
There are many different forms and practices of moxibustion, but there are three primary ones: direct scarring, direct non-scarring, and indirect. Direct scarring is just what it sounds like. Little piles of mugwort are lit on fire on the skin and allowed to burn down all the way to the skin where they cause blisters and scars.
Great. That's the one for me. I don't need to hear any more.
Sign me up. Direct non-scarring is what you see most often in health spas in the West, where a small pile of mugwort is kind of piled up in a cone on a meridian point of the body and then set on fire, but extinguished before it gets to the skin and causes any kind of damage. Indirect moxibustion is where a cigar-like stick of burning mugwort is held near the skin, or a small amount of mugwort is stuck to the end of an acupuncture needle and set alight.
If there's anything we've learned from all the other woos, it's that you don't actually have to touch a person. So
they just they're like smudging you. They just kind of wave it over your back.
Yeah. So there's like the non-direct. It either they put a little clump of it on the top of a acupuncture needle and stick it in you and then light it on fire, or they literally hold like a burning cigar of it just close to your skin. So
I like it.
So moxibustion is mostly harmless unless you engage in the direct scarring method. Then it leaves small burn marks on the skin.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just said that you were scarring people.
Yeah, the direct scarring method is not the popular one by any stretch. And it's kind of...
Why? Weird.
It's not really practiced. It's still practiced in the East, but very, very little in the West because people don't like cigarette burns. Instances of mild nausea and throat irritation have been reported, as one would expect from the inhalation of the smoke of several piles of smoldering ragweed mixed with the scent of burning hair. But like many forms of woo, it's not the direct harm that is troublesome, but the indirect harm of relying on useless rituals rather than science and medicine to treat real maladies.
Yeah.
Among the supposed benefits of moxibustion are as a treatment for cancer, strokes, ulcerative colitis, constipation, hypertension, and even the repositioning of breech babies.
Oh, no.
This is all, of course, nonsense.
Does it just make it smell so bad that they turn over?
Well, right, exactly. There are countless articles extolling moxibustion's ability to turn a baby in the womb.
How
is this done, I hear you asking? Well, first think it should really be done by a skilled, unlicensed practitioner. Right. Unfortunately, moxibustion licenses are hard to come by ever since the closing of Trump University. If at roughly 34 weeks or 8.5 months, so, pretty late, if the baby is in the feet down position, then indirect moxibustion should be employed on the meridian point called bladder 67. And where is bladder 67? The key to rotating a fully grown fetus inside the uterus?
That's what my jersey said on my middle school basketball team.
Bladder 67. I heard bladder 67 in concert one time. They were great.
You're going to be surprised to learn that the meridian point bladder 67 is on the outer part of your pinky toe.
Oh my God! You're making it up.
I'm not making this up. This, checking my notes, does not work. In fact, if you are in danger of a breech birth and anybody in your circle recommends poking a needle into your pinky toe, wrapping it in a common weed and setting it on fire, expel that person from your birth plan. Now,
yeah. Also, just give them the most loving knockout punch you can.
Yes.
You don't want to do any permanent damage. You just think like 15 minutes of real REM sleep on your living room floor will probably really help them.
Realign their cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, because if this show has taught us anything, there is not a terrible idea in history that cannot be made more terrible. And so traditional mugwort-based moxibustion has given rise to all kinds of profit-driven variations, including magnetic moxibustion, microwave moxibustion.
Nope, I don't even want to know what that is.
Sonic moxibustion and laser moxibustion.
Yes.
Products purporting to provide one or more forms of this moxibustion are everywhere. Now, it has to be mentioned here that a couple studies have been done on the effects of infrared laser moxibustion on cancer-related fatigue. I'm going to walk you through this. Some cancer patients reported a very marginal improvement in their fatigue levels after undergoing treatment with low-level lasers aimed at certain meridian points on their bodies compared to those who received none. Now, like woo practitioners everywhere, moxibustionists are willing to scale the mountain of science debunking their claim to hold aloft any meager morsel that supports it. But let's temper this just a bit. These studies are anything but conclusive, basically like finding out that a basketball team using red balls scores slightly more per game than one using blue balls. Much more science needs to be done to get to the bottom of any of this. And let's not forget the subjects of these few studies were patients who had recovered from cancer, not by burning small amounts of junk plants on their torso, but through chemo and radiation therapies, as far from TCM as one can get.
You said the words cancer and moxibustion in the same sentence. It cures
I win!
it.
Jesus.
And alleviating post-surgery fatigue is not even one of the myriad maladies that moxibustion even pretends to cure. And lastly, that lasers are somewhat recent invention, and checks my notes, invented by science.
Okay, hold on. How do you get the ragweed into the laser? Like, I don't understand. Like, do you point the laser at the ragweed, or is it a ragweed infused laser? I don't get it.
It's a
tincture?
ragweed infused laser.
Can you tincture a laser?
You can.
Can you tincture a laser?
You
Sounds
wave
like
you shoot the laser through the smoke of the ragweed.
Why not?
But this misappropriation of science has not stopped the Paltrows of the world from proclaiming that this proves not only the perfect validity of moxibustion, but acupuncture, crystals, magic beans, and why not, vaginal steaming. Now, there have been a few fatalities from moxibustion, but they are very few and far between, and are primarily caused by the foregoing of actual medical treatment. But as far as woos go, this one is at least on the far side of the spectrum towards harmless. So there's not much to it. Just burning weeds on your body to smell.
Sounds great.
That's moxibustion.
You are a moxibuster. Congratulations. Here's your certificate from Trump University.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, but things like, the breech baby shit, like, that's crazy. Like,
It's dangerous. Very.
super dangerous. Like,
Well, also just stupid. Just plumb stupid.
here's how it can fix a breech birth. If the person what do you call a person who's operating the birth, whatever that is,
Doctor.
puts doctor. Well, not in this case probably, but if they were to put a little of the ragweed in their glove and then turn the baby during birth and pull it out, then that would probably be an effective way to moxibust that baby.
Yeah, every time this has been attempted, it's followed quickly by a ride to the emergency room.
Well, it's also one of those things where it's like, you're 30 whatever weeks into the pregnancy, the baby hasn't turned. You pick a random part of that woman's body and do a random thing to it, and do that for 50 women, and maybe a baby will turn, and then you get to claim that it works.
And then you have 49 dead babies on your hands.
Oh,
Well, no, they'll get them turned in the hospital or
Exactly.
whatever.
yeah. So, well, there you go. That's something I really am disappointed I know about now.
We're moxibusted.
All right, moving on.
Hey, fellas.
Hi.
Hello?
You know what's great is that the world, at least our world here in these United States, might become a little bit more sane. There seems to be promise of sanity coming up.
Yeah, we keep saying that.
We got 1 week, and then we will find out exactly which way the wind blows, or at least some of the ways that the wind blows.
Yeah.
Anyway, it seems to have been enough to convince a few people that they don't have to hoard all of their gold in their mattress, and they can give a little bit of their money to us. And so it is time to provide thanks thereunto. So big thanks to our newest patrons, Rib Clone. I assume. I don't know if that if that hints at what this person's name is or not. But Rib Clone.
I'm guessing the Book of Genesis.
Right. Yeah. Brett, Jenny, and then Uncle Doug.
Oh, boy.
Somebody has restyled themselves. A current patron has decided to step up and become a glorious patron, and therefore we are inducting her into heaven.
That's right.
Will you please do the honors?
She has been re-beatified.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, our newest heavened patron is Genevieve. So, Genevieve, this heaven is for you. Genevieve, when 17 minutes after listening to this episode, you meet your end in a freak feral hippopotamus monster truck pileup, the trials and tribulations of this world will instantly be removed from your now thoroughly crushed shoulders. In the twinkling of an eye, The angry ungulate that was so recently stomping on you is replaced by soft sunlight, a mild breeze, and countless groves of trees. The juxtaposition is jarring, so it takes you several long seconds to adjust. You take in several deep breaths to steady yourself, and each breath is rich in sweet, savory aromas. You smell and taste jasmine, honeysuckle, dandelion, citrus, lilac, primrose, hollyhock, chrysanthemum, daffodil, edelweiss, geranium, fuchsia, and fleur-de-lis. It's like inhaling cotton candy. But that's not all. Your nostrils ring with sandalwood, shea butter, honey, coconut, bee balm, bergamot, vetiver, ginger, indigo, coriander stem, and rose of hay. It's a heady mix, but not at all unpleasant, if not just a bit much. Like trying too many samples of the ice cream shop, it all blends into a kind of impending sweetness. You sweep your eyes across the beautiful surroundings. Grove after grove of trees stretch out to the horizon. It's impossible to tell if it's spring or fall, as every other grove is either filled with spring flowers or emblazoned with fall colors. All of them beautiful, though. And standing, kneeling, or lounging in front of every grove is a single, very white family. A manly father with short-cropped hair and a steel jaw, a mother with impossibly long blonde curly locks, and 7, 8, 9, or even 10 children, each a perfect mixture of the parents' best genetics, all wearing matching sweaters, gingham, or denim shirts. All the boys are tow-headed and adorable, and all the girls are festooned with just so many ribbons in their flowing hair. As you move from group to group, they are friendly enough. They smile with perfect teeth and greet you with practiced pleasantries. They introduce you to their children with names at once familiar and odd. Ashton with a Y, Brighton, Camden with a Y, Emily spelled 9 different ways, Hannah, Cadence with a K, Oakley, Beckett, Braxton, Gideon, Leighton, Porter, Tegan, Harper, Hazel, Mason, Haley spelled 11 different ways, Logan, Hudson, Cooper, Riker, Asher, Fletcher, Grayson, Easton, Caleb, Parker, Finn, Dexton, Brooklyn, Addison, Madison, Violet, Paisley, Penelope, Savannah, Aspen, Brielle, Aurora, Kennedy, Alexis, Alexa, Riley, Reagan, and of course, Genevieve, spelled 14 different ways. Each mother, through an increasingly disconcerting smile, offers you a homemade product, remedy, or treatment. Natural honey-infused shea butter lotion, wrinkle cream with local beeswax, jasmine and lilac lip balm, potpourri made with spring daffodils and roasted oak, bergamot-scented candles, etc., etc. You realize this endless line of hand-branded products are the source of the myriad aromas that welcomed you here. Now, however, you realize you'll be swimming upstream in this scented wonderland forever, and you start to fill with a sense of foreboding. Each time you politely refuse to purchase one of their products, without breaking their smile, each mother simply blinks a couple extra times. The perfection begins to fade, and you sense a desperate sense of conformity being tamped down hard behind blue eyes and perfect skin. It finally hits you. You are in Mormon mommy blogger heaven. It's not their fault. It's certainly not yours. It's your parents. You see, God's a busy gal, and when trying to assign everyone else killed by the marauding hippos that day, God simply looked at your name and sent you to where she thought you belonged. Come on, a soft G, 4 E's, and 2 V's? Where else did you expect her to send you than to spend time with all the Kayleys with 2 E's, the Madeleines with 2 Y's and 2 N's, and every variety of Genevieve? So enjoy eternity in a garden just east of Eden and just south of the uncanny valley. I'm very sorry to say you will not be able to drown your misery in alcohol, but there will be plenty of antidepressants.
Woof.
Do you want to know why I know that that's not real? No mugwort.
I just read it. I don't remember who. Maybe it's Tori sent it to me. This article about the Mormon mommy bloggers becoming like one of the weirdest dark edges of the Q universe at this point.
Yeah, yes. I read that too.
Holy balls, was that crazy, right?
Yeah, not great.
Well, Genevieve, enjoy your time there.
Yeah, enjoy your heaven. Sounds delightful.
Yeah.
And if you other people would love to be as rewarded as Genevieve has been today, please feel free to go to howtoheretic.com, click on the support thing, and it'll send you to the place, and you do the stuff, and you type, and then we have money.
Yeah. We'll take
It's just
Bitcoin.
that
I
simple.
don't know. Why not?
Dump that Bitcoin off on us.
And unlike, Christian help places, we actually still have an association with PayPal. So
That's right.
We're still golden. Thanks so much to everybody. You know what? The other thing you can do is give us 5 stars, and that is not a request. That is a demand. You have to do it.
That's right.
So go onto your things. Find a place to write a review. 5 stars is great, but a review is even better. This just helps other people find us, and that's really sweet of you if you do it. Just like Smitty did, and here's Miss Smitty's review of us. Title, Always a Joy, which I can't argue. How to Heretic is a smart, funny program that is always a joy to listen to. It's perfect for people who listen to podcasts to learn interesting facts about history and religion.
There you go.
Oh,
See?
Thank you,
We're perfect.
Smitty.
What I heard was we are perfect.
Yes, we're definitely perfect. So thanks, everyone, for that. Thank you especially, Genevieve, and also we're very sorry. And paint our universe with stars, and until next time, let's move on.
Let's move on. Uncle Mark.
Present.
Many of our listeners may not know that we record this show on Sundays, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the morning.
Sundays, yeah.
But at least for the past couple of weeks, Sunday night has been ladies' night here at the How To Heretic.
That's true.
Yeah. We dedicated a segment to our heavenly Mormon mother, who we are not supposed to talk about or know her name.
Yeah.
She who will not be named,
And,
not unlike Voldemort.
That's right.
Maybe that's her name.
Her name's Voldemort. Uncle Dan has a follow-up with another lady segment.
Yes, indeed.
Wow, it's a streak.
Well, interestingly, this is actually what I started to work on last week's show, but then I kind of got sidetracked into the Mormon thing, which I like. But I'm sure a bunch of folks who heard my segment on Heavenly Mother, but came from more mainstream Christian traditions, were snickering to themselves about how weird those Mormons are. And they're obviously right. But
Yes.
I say that their snootiness is misplaced. They run afoul of the 8th commandment, thou shalt not decry the blackness of a kettle when thou, pot, are like unto the shade of pitch thyself. First, because pretty much every theological belief is just as mind-numbingly stupid as the next, but more importantly, because all Christians have a heavenly mother. Jews too.
Oh.
They just were never taught about her. So, for today's show, I'm going to dip into the graveyard of the gods and dig up Asherah.
Oh.
Now, to get to who Asherah is and why I'm making all kinds of crazy claims about her, we have to go back to the very early Bible times, and even before that. As we learned from Uncle Doug when he gave us the Bible story of Joshua in recent episodes, the Israelites weren't the only people in the Middle East back in the day, but if they were, because if they were, who would God tell them to genocide? No. There was that plucky group back then known as the Canaanites.
Yeah.
Now, Canaanites are by far the most frequently mentioned ethnic group in the Bible, and were basically the Washington Generals to the Israel's Harlem Globetrotters. And if you don't like that analogy, they were the Macho Man Randy Savage to Israel's Hulk Hogan. Or, maybe this is much closer to the mark, the Israelites were the English, and the Canaanites were any indigenous people on the planet. So,
Did Macho Man Randy Savage, was that his deal? He got beaten up by Hulk all the time?
well, he was the heel, and Hulk was the face.
But then remember, Hulk turned into the heel for a while. Remember how
he
crazy
did.
that was?
He went heel. He was Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
That was crazy, huh?
These are wrestling deep cuts, everybody.
Why don't we just talk about that for a
Let's
while?
do that. Let's just do a wrestling show. You guys remember Ric Flair? Anyway, the point is that the Canaanites are bad guys, and Israel would just fight them over and over and over. This all started when God freed the Israelites from bondage in Egypt, never happened, and then promised them all the Canaanite land as a sort of slavery reparations. Unfortunately, there were people living on that land. So, some dude's got to die. Then the Israelites took over the conquered land, made slaves of the survivors, and they all lived happily ever after as God's chosen people. But really, what likely happened is that the Israelites lived alongside the Canaanites and may have actually arisen from them. Either way, Canaanite history is inextricably tied to Israelite history. They shared a fuck ton of social and cultural heritage, and here's where it gets interesting. That heritage includes gods. Now, we've discussed some Canaanite gods before. Way back in episode 9, Uncle Mark, you talked about Baal.
Yeah.
To today's evangelical televangelists, Baal is basically a synonym for Satan. Just an evil guy that evil people worshipped.
Yeah.
But actually, Baal was just one of the gods of the Canaanite pantheon, and he was no small shakes. Baal was the son of the head honcho, the big cheese, the Crunchwrap Supreme, El. Now, if the name El sounds familiar to you, it may be because it appears all over the Bible. But unlike Baal, El doesn't get labeled as a bad guy. Why? Because at some point along the way, Canaanite El merged with Israelite Yahweh to form Voltron, the most powerful god of all.
A super group.
Yes, indeed.
Like damn Yankees.
Right. In fact, the Bible seems to turn the name El into just a word that means God. But there are actually lots of passages where it is not using it that way. The Bible actually references El as a name for a supreme God. But the big invention of the Israelites is monotheism, so if there are two all-powerful gods, they must be the same guy. And both names pop up all over the place. Most times, as a matter of fact, if a Bible name ends in El, that name is referring to the God. Or just God, sort of generically.
Like Jor-El or Kal-El.
That's right. That's right.
Holy shit,
more
wait. Like the universes are crossing.
Yeah, exactly. Ezekiel, Raphael, Michael, which is why it's spelled that way, A-E-L. And, of course, Daniel, the handsomest of all of the names, are all examples.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Hell, the name Israel has El right there in the name. Now, Yahweh appears in names too. In most of the names in the Bible that end in Ah, those are references to Yahweh. So Isaiah, Zechariah, Hezekiah, etc.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. Interestingly, one name that ends in Ah in the Bible that isn't a Yahweh reference is our friend who you thought I was never going to circle back to, Asherah, or Asherah. Now, depending on what mythos you're reading about, Asherah is the queen consort, read royal wife, of the Sumerian god Anu, or of El, or of Yahweh. Yes, Yahweh seems to have had a wife at some point, at least for a while. Between the 10th century BCE and the Israelite exile in 586 BCE, Israel were just as polytheistic as everybody else. It was only after the exile that the idea of a single God started to spread, and probably wasn't even universal among the Jews until the time of the Maccabees around the 2nd century BCE. Now, we've talked many times about how even the Bible itself, mostly the Old Testament, for all its thou shalt have no gods before me talk, has a lot of gods in it.
Yeah.
And they're not just, the silly myth that those guys over there worship. No, many of the stories include the Hebrew God going toe-to-toe with other gods in a fight, and the other gods actually kind of holding their own, which means that they not only exist for real, according to the Bible, but they're almost as powerful as Yahweh. Now, even the New Testament has some sticky wickets in terms of polytheism. Like, how is Satan not a god? And it keeps talking about a Father, a Son, and a Holy Ghost, and all three are divine, which, if you're too obsessed with there being only one God, might lead you to decide something stupid like, yeah, they're three guys, but they're also one guy. Which, by the way, that theology isn't in the Bible. That's just something that the Catholics came up with later because their brains were on fire.
Yes, Trinitarianism.
It's a really smart solution to a non-existent problem. Anyway, that's kind of what happened with El and Yahweh. It seems that as the Israelites got bigger and more powerful and started started taking over in the religion, they decided that their guy and the other guy were just the same guy. It was very much like Christians taking over, but keeping a bunch of the pagan rites and rituals, just claiming they're about Jesus now. So, okay, fine.
It's
El
just good
is
screenplay
Yahweh.
writing. I mean, that's all it is.
What's that?
It's just good screenplay writing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing we can say about the Bible, it's just really smart, tight writing.
It's pretty zipped up. Like you really can't find any kind of,
Can't poke a hole in that.
not at all.
No. So, okay. El is Yahweh now, but El had a wife and a bunch of kids. And sort of the process of one culture absorbing another one is a very slow, very messy process. So, you've got a bunch of people who like their gods and traditions, and this whole monotheism thing took forever. It did not happen overnight. Mm-hmm. The Bible is not the most reliable source for the story of how they moved from polytheism to monotheism, but it does tell that story. Solomon himself built temples to lots of gods, for example, and in the temple he built to Yahweh, he put statues as tributes to Asherah. Because they were married and she was the queen of heaven. Now, we know that he did this because in 2 Kings, Josiah, the self-appointed guardian of monotheism, smashed the Asherahs and then covered the site with human bones for some reason.
Well,
Now,
because that was one of the most plentiful things in the Old Testament times.
Right.
What are we going to throw over this? Dirt? No, we got way more bones.
Exactly.
Just do bones. One of the worst aspects of monotheism is that the single God you end up with doesn't really represent everybody. When the Jews got rid of all but one God, and that God was a big, tough, vengeful man God, the women no longer had their own God to talk to, which sucks because, as you know, Yahweh was a patriarchal nightmare.
Yeah.
What was and is.
Yeah.
Was and is, continues to be. And Asherah does seem to have been a staple of worship by women, especially in the home, although there is plenty of talk. There is a biblical, I don't have her written down, there's a biblical queen that worshipped her too. So it wasn't just a home thing, it was also the royals. But archaeological finds in the area indicate that she was pretty common, like super common, and a very popular god among the Israelites. Female figurines have been a semi-constant find in ancient sites, which seems to indicate that Asherah worship was fairly ubiquitous. There were festivals to her where Hebrews would bake small cakes. There were ancient temple sites and shrines where Asherah seems to have been the main object of worship. She was a big deal.
Yeah.
Asherah is the only female god attested to in the Bible or in ancient Israel generally, it seems. But the Bible definitely mentions her. Like, kind of a lot.
By
wait,
name?
Uncle Dan.
By Asherah? By name?
Yeah.
Huh.
But wait, I hear you saying, I've read the Bible many times. I mean, not you guys, but some people have read the Bible, and I don't remember any mentions of Asherah. True. If you search the King James Bible, you will find zero references to Asherah.
Ah,
That's
interesting.
because the King James translation isn't a translation of an original text. It is a translation of several translations. It has gone from the original Hebrew to Greek to Latin to Pig Latin. And just like running the text through Google Translate several times, some of the words got messed up.
To Esperanto.
Right, exactly.
Yep. To Jawa.
Yeah, Jawa.
In some instances, Asherah got rendered by the Greeks to their word meaning grove or trees, which made it into the Vulgate Latin as a grove or wood. And that may have made sense to some scholars because Asherah was often associated with trees and wood. Her image was often carved in wood, and her icons were placed under trees. But despite some translations cutting her out completely, Asherah appears in the Bible 40 times.
Holy shit.
She was a big deal. Of course,
Wow.
the Bible being the Bible, most of the mentions of her are of wicked people worshiping her and righteous, valiant heroes destroying everything having to do with her. But there she is.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When you read the Bible as a believer, you cheer you cheer when God rages and commands his servants to go destroy the shrines to other gods. You revel in the massacres and the looting and the pillaging because the looters are the good guys. But when you read it from the perspective of, reality, that is, all the gods are fake and these guys are just bullies for no good reason, the stories take on a different meaning. So, when I read Jeremiah chapter 44, for example, I don't read a story about a noble servant of the one true God in a holy crusade to please save the world by stopping people from worshiping false gods. I read about a fanatic who has lost his damned mind and is wrecking people's lives. Now, the chapter starts with God pointing out that he, God, has totally wrecked Jerusalem and all the towns of Judah. Like, the cities are demolished, and what's left of the people are fixing to move to Egypt to get away from the wreckage. God told Jeremiah that those people would not live to come back to Judah if they didn't get rid of all their other religious practices, and Jeremiah passes that message along. Now, here's the thing. When you have the choice between worshiping a nice God and worshiping a God who literally just decimated your people and destroyed your homeland, it's not an awesome choice.
Yeah.
You're definitely terrified of Yahweh, but who wants to worship a crazed tyrant? Well, half of Americans do, but that's a comparison for another time.
So it's there is precedent.
Right, yeah. Right. It seems a lot less unlikely right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's how the people responded to Jeremiah when he told them they should worship Yahweh. This is a quote from Jeremiah 44. Is that what I said? 44, yeah. Then all the men who knew that their wives were burning incense to other gods, along with all the women who were present, a large assembly, and all the people living in Lower and Upper Egypt said to Jeremiah, "We will not listen to the message you have spoken to us in the name of the Lord. We will certainly do everything we said we would. We will burn incense to the Queen of Heaven, and we will pour out drink offerings to her, just as we and our ancestors, our kings and our officials did in the towns of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem. At that time, we had plenty of food and were well off and suffered no harm. But ever since we stopped burning incense to the Queen of Heaven and pouring out drink offerings to her, we have had nothing and have been perishing by the sword and famine." And the women added, "We burned our incense to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drink offerings to her, and did not our when we burned out the incense and poured out the drink offerings to her, did not our husbands know that we were making cakes impressed with her image and pouring out drink offerings to her?" But therein lies the problem. Did you catch it? When they worship a lady god, the women had some power. There was a measure of equity and equality there. The women were just as important in the worship as the men. Heaven had a queen, for God's sake.
Nope. Can't have that.
Nope. So obviously that had to go. even though everything was better when they worshipped her, according to the Bible. But they still had to get rid of her. The theme, might makes right, and no girls allowed.
You know,
Now, what?
this is fascinating. This reminds me of when you read in Numbers that there are instructions on how to perform an abortion.
Yup.
This is that kind of shattering to, we've read the Bible together so much in the context of the show. It still astonishes me that what's actually in the frickin' book.
Yeah, how do you just gloss over the fact that the Bible mentions a queen of heaven?
Yeah, favorably.
Yeah. Just gloss over it. Just move right through it. Now, of course, because Asherah was female, they couldn't just have their god defeat her. Even gods aren't supposed to beat up women, apparently. So they went ahead and did the next best thing. They changed her story. They followed the standard handbook for discrediting a woman, which told them exactly what to do. Any guesses, fellas?
I'm sure it involves high velocity rocks.
Nope. They labeled her a sex goddess and painted her worshippers as prostitutes.
Okay. Classic.
Classic move.
Classic.
Works every time.
Amazing how little things change.
I know.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Slut.
Right?
That's it.
Exactly.
You
They
just call her-
slut-shamed her and
Yes.
sent her to the oblivion. So using only the powers of gentle persuasion, diplomatic reasoning, slander, and mass murder on a genocidal scale, the God of Israel got the divorce he apparently deeply desired, and Asherah has disappeared back into the graveyard of the gods.
Oh,
Yeah, well, every time we not every time, but most of the times we talk about the Bible, we always hit upon these little hidden pockets of polytheism.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're
Right.
not hidden. That's the thing. They're just right out there in the open for all the world to see.
Well, it's funny too because I in thinking about ever debating an evangelical or something like that again, I always try and kind of keep in the back of my mind, like, remember this thing, it's crazy. Like, remember that part in Numbers that talks about how to perform an abortion, or now it's like, remember, to talk about the Queen of Heaven. At some point, it's like, look, I'm just going to throw the whole book at you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Read this book for real, and then
Sit
come
down
and talk
and read
to
it.
me.
Yeah,
God
and I think
damn
it's also important to acknowledge that we're not really making a value judgment about whether polytheism is better or worse than monotheism.
Yeah.
It's just that the claim is that, every Christian sect's claim is that they are monotheist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and, the Jews claim they're monotheist, and most kind of hilariously, the Catholics, well, they're not.
Right.
Yeah. Why don't you get rid of that book then? Like,
Right.
And like I say, even if the Christians get rid of the Old Testament, which they 1,000% should do,
Yeah.
they still have a polytheism problem.
Well, that's the thing is, like, from our perspective, what does it matter to us if you have an invisible friend or a bunch of invisible friends?
Right.
You know what I mean?
What's the big deal?
Yeah, I
the
don't.
problem.
I don't give a shit. Like, but your claim is that you're a monotheist, and you're just not.
No. So there you go. Queen of Heaven.
There you
God's
go.
wife.
And you learn
God's
something new
wife.
every day.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, let's move on.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's educational show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you. If you know more about mugwort than you ought to, send us an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you're one of 51 people in the shadow government, you should call me, and I will call the FBI at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. I can also be given tips on Twitter at howtoheretic.
And as always, thanks to our incredibly generous patrons.
And thanks to our Queen of Heaven, Cody Layton, for editing the show.
And thank you, dear friends, for tuning in.
Bye-bye, friends.
Bye.